You've been praying, you've been fasting, and yet nothing seems to move. You've been faithful in the midnight hour, tears rolling down your face, whispering, God, when is it my turn? But let me tell you something today. Just because heaven is silent doesn't mean heaven has forgotten. Raising hands, oh, I feel this one, because some of you think a delay means a denial. You think God has walked away, but baby, He's just setting the stage. The delay is divine. The waiting season is the womb of your destiny. God is not punishing you, He's preparing you. He's not rejecting you, He's refining you. When it looks like nothing's happening, when doors stay closed, when prayers seem unanswered, that's when God is working behind the curtain, aligning things you can't even see. Don't you dare walk away from the promise just because the process is taking time. Tell somebody next to you, it's delayed, but it's not denied. Because when God finally moves, it won't be a trickle, it'll be a flood. When the blessing comes, it'll make sense why He made you wait. So lift your head, square your shoulders, and declare it with faith. Delay is God's method of development, not His message of denial. When we face moments in life where the clock keeps ticking but our breakthrough seems frozen, the natural mind begins to whisper lies. It tells you that God forgot you, that your prayers fell flat, that maybe your faith wasn't enough. But I came to tell you today, delay is not denial, it is divine development. God is not ignoring you, He's instructing you. He's not denying your request, He's deepening your roots. The silence of heaven is not rejection, it's preparation. Sometimes God delays because what He's building in you is greater than what you're asking from Him. You see, we want the promise, but we often overlook the process. We want the crown without carrying the cross. We want the platform without the preparation. But God, in His wisdom, slows things down so that what He places in your hand won't destroy you when you get it. He will not let you step into a blessing that your character can't yet sustain. That's why delay is not punishment, it's protection. It's God saying, I'm getting you ready for what you're not ready to carry. Think about David, anointed to be king, but sent back to tend sheep. Samuel poured oil on his head, and destiny declared, You are the chosen one. But after that divine moment, David didn't walk straight into the palace. He walked back into obscurity. He played his harp in fields nobody applauded. He killed lions and bears in battles nobody saw. He was delayed, not denied. Because that delay was shaping him, stretching him, teaching him how to rule, how to fight, how to worship under pressure. So when the crown finally came, he could handle the weight of it. God was developing the king inside the shepherd. And He's doing the same for you. We live in a world that celebrates speed, but God operates by seasons. He's not moved by our calendars, He's moved by our character. You might think you're ready, but God sees what still needs refining. You might be crying for the door to open, but God's working on your strength to hold it open when it does. The delay is not wasted time, it's working time. While you're waiting, He's weaving purpose into your pain, faith into your frustration, maturity into your moments of weakness. That delay is crafting a version of you that will walk into destiny fully equipped. Many people quit during delay because they mistake God's silence for His absence. But God often speaks through stillness. When nothing seems to move, He's whispering, Be still and know that I am God. He's teaching you to trust when you can't trace Him. He's testing your faith when feelings fade. The waiting room of God is where warriors are made. It's where your endurance grows, where your trust deepens, where your worship becomes authentic. Anybody can praise when the miracle happens, but can you praise when it hasn't? That's what the delay teaches you: to worship without proof, to believe without evidence, to hope when it hurts. Sometimes delay exposes your motives. Are you following God for his hand or for his heart? Are you chasing his promise or his presence? When things slow down, when prayers aren't answered instantly, your true faith shows up. Because real faith says, even if it takes longer than I thought, I'm still going to trust him. Real faith stands firm when feelings fall apart. Delay builds that kind of faith, the unshakable, unmovable kind that the storms of life can't break. And let me tell you something powerful: what God delays, he doesn't diminish. Just because it's late doesn't mean it lost its power. In fact, when God finally releases what he's been holding back, it often comes with greater impact, greater influence, greater favor than you imagine. That's why when he delayed Lazarus's resurrection, it wasn't because he didn't care. It was because he wanted to show greater glory. He waited until the situation was dead, so that when he moved, there would be no doubt it was him. Delay magnifies divine power. So don't curse the delay, learn from it. Don't despise the waiting season, it's producing something sacred in you. Every time you pray and nothing happens, heaven is stretching your spiritual muscles. Every time you keep believing when the report says no, God is sculpting your soul for greater strength. He's developing patience, perseverance, discernment, all the qualities that quick blessings can't produce. When you finally step into what you've been waiting for, you'll realize the delay wasn't against you, it was working for you. The truth is, destiny has a schedule, and God is never early or late. He moves at the intersection of purpose and preparation. When you're ready and the season aligns, no power in hell can stop what God ordained. Until then, don't mistake his delay for denial. Keep walking, keep worshiping, keep working. What he promised he will perform, but he's making sure you're strong enough to carry it. Delay is not God turning his back. It's him turning you into the person who can handle the blessing when it comes. So, the next time you find yourself waiting, don't let frustration rob you of faith. Instead, lift your hands and declare, God is developing me. Because when the delay ends, and it will, you'll see that every tear, every prayer, every sleepless night was shaping something powerful inside you. Delay is not denial, it's divine preparation for destiny's door. What you call waiting, God calls working behind the scenes. Sometimes it feels like life has hit a standstill. You've prayed, you've fasted, you've done all you know to do, but the situation looks exactly the same. The door you've been knocking on remains closed. The answer you've been expecting hasn't shown up, and your faith feels like it's walking through fog. In those moments, frustration whispers that God has forgotten you. But let me remind you, God never stops working. While you're waiting, he's weaving. While you're pacing the floor, he's positioning the pieces. While you're crying, he's crafting. God is working behind the curtain, arranging things in ways your eyes can't yet see. We live in an age that worships visibility. We like to see progress, we need to see evidence, we crave updates from heaven, some kind of confirmation that what we prayed for is on the way. But God doesn't always send tracking numbers for his miracles. Sometimes he hides his hand while he moves his plan. And that's where faith becomes more than a word, it becomes a lifestyle. Because faith is not believing God when you can see him moving. Faith is believing that he's moving even when you can't. The invisible seasons are not empty, they're pregnant with purpose. Take Joseph, for example. He had a dream that one day he'd rise to greatness. But before the dream could manifest, everything around him seemed to fall apart. He was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, lied on, and thrown into prison. From the outside, it looked like delay, like denial, like disaster. But from heaven's view, it was divine direction. God was working behind the scenes, positioning Joseph exactly where he needed to be. Every betrayal, every false accusation, every disappointment was a stepping stone toward the palace. What Joseph called waiting, God called working. When the time came, God didn't have to look for Joseph. He was already in place, refined, prepared, and ready for purpose. That's how God works with you. You think nothing is happening, but God is setting up a divine chain reaction. He's orchestrating connections, opening doors you haven't even knocked on yet, and closing the ones that would have broken you. He's softening hearts in rooms you haven't entered. He's moving people, shifting systems, and writing your name into the conversations of destiny. You may not see it, but the hand of God is moving across the chessboard of your life with precision and intention. And here's the beauty of it. God doesn't need your visibility to make something valuable. The seed grows underground long before it breaks through the soil. You can't see the roots developing, but without them, the plant would never stand. The darkness is not the death of your dream, it's the development of it. When it feels like nothing is happening, remember that God does his best work in secret. He formed you in your mother's womb before anyone ever knew your name. He prepared salvation in the silence of a stable before the world knew the Messiah was born. He raised Jesus in the quiet of a tomb before the resurrection shocked the earth. God specializes in silent miracles. Faith is proven in the hallway between the promise and the fulfillment. It's easy to believe God when the miracle has already manifested, when the door has already opened, when the healing has already happened. But real faith is not forged in fulfillment. It's tested in transition. The hallway, that in-between space where the promise hasn't yet shown up, but the pain already has, is where faith either crumbles or grows. It's where you learn to trust God without needing to see the outcome. It's where belief stops being a theory and becomes your lifeline. Every promise from God comes with a process, and between those 2 points lies a hallway of waiting, of stretching, of uncertainty. It's the space where your emotions fight your expectations, where your heart wrestles with hope, where the question why becomes louder than the promise I will. The hallway is not glamorous. It's lonely, quiet, and confusing. But it's also sacred, because that's where God proves the strength of your faith. That's where he strips away the need for control and replaces it with trust. When God gives you a promise, he's not just speaking to your circumstance, he's speaking to your spirit. He's telling you what will be, but he's also preparing who you must become. And between the promise and the fulfillment, there's a transformation taking place inside of you. God is not just working for you, he's working in you. The hallway builds something that miracles can't: endurance. It trains you to walk by faith, not by sight. It teaches you to keep moving even when you can't see the next door. Think about Abraham. God told him he would be the father of many nations, but years passed with no sign of the promise. Every day that went by tested his trust. Every sunrise that came without a sun was another opportunity to doubt. Yet the Bible says Abraham did not waver through unbelief, because he was fully persuaded that God was able to do what he promised. Abraham's faith wasn't proven when Isaac was born. It was proven in the years he waited for him. The hallway between promise and fulfillment became the proving ground of his belief. That's what God does. He allows time to test what your words claim to believe. Anyone can say, "I trust God," when life feels stable. But can you still say it when the evidence goes missing? Can you still trust when the answer is delayed? Can you still worship when the vision looks impossible? That's faith in the hallway, trusting without proof, standing without sight, believing without feeling. The hallway can feel long and cold, but it's also where you find God in ways you never knew him before. When everything is stripped away, the certainty, the comfort, the support, you start depending on his presence more than his performance. You begin to recognize that his silence doesn't mean his absence. He's right there, walking beside you, even when it feels like he's a million miles away. Sometimes God hides his hand so you'll seek his heart. In the hallway, God teaches you patience. He teaches you surrender. He teaches you how to let go of your timeline and trust his. You might be praying for him to open a door, but he's waiting for your character to match the size of the calling. He's testing your consistency. Will you still show up, still pray, still serve, still believe, even when nothing changes? Faith is not proven when you receive what you prayed for. It's proven when you keep believing after years of waiting with no visible result. Your preparation and delay determines your elevation in destiny. Many people want to be elevated, but few are willing to be prepared. We often pray for promotion while trying to escape the process. But in the kingdom of God, every delay is pregnant with development. Before God lifts you up, he builds you up. Before he gives you the platform, he forms your foundation. The time you spend in preparation is not wasted. It's sacred. Because what you do while waiting determines what you can handle when you arrive. If you neglect the process, you'll crumble under the promise. But if you embrace the process, you'll rise ready, strong, and unshakable. Every delay in your life is God's classroom. It's where he teaches you discipline, maturity, endurance, and wisdom. These are the qualities that destiny requires. You can't walk into divine purpose unprepared. Otherwise, the blessing meant to build you will break you. Preparation during delay is the training ground where you learn how to carry greatness without letting it crush you. God often hides your potential in places that feel uncomfortable. You might feel buried, but in reality, you're being planted. And what's planted must stay hidden until it grows roots deep enough to sustain the fruit that's coming. Think about Moses. He knew he was called to deliver God's people, but he spent 40 years in the wilderness before stepping into his assignment. 40 years of obscurity, 40 years of solitude, 40 years of learning how to lead sheep before leading people. That wasn't wasted time, it was preparation time. The wilderness taught Moses what the palace couldn't: how to depend on God, how to lead with humility, how to wait for divine timing. When God finally called him, Moses wasn't the same man who once acted out of impulse. He had been refined by the fire of waiting. His preparation in delay determined his elevation in destiny. The same is true for you. Every season of waiting is shaping something inside you that success cannot teach. God uses hidden seasons to test your heart. Can you be faithful with little before he trusts you with much? Can you remain obedient when no one is watching? Can you serve quietly before you shine publicly? These questions are answered in the delay. People who rush the process often end up forfeiting the promise because they arrive unprepared. But those who wait, who work, who grow during delay, they step into destiny equipped for longevity. Preparation is not passive. It's not sitting still, complaining about how long it's taking. Preparation is active. It's praying when you don't feel like it. It's studying when no one sees you. It's improving your gift, strengthening your faith, and building your character. God will not elevate you beyond what you've prepared for. If you're asking Him for more, you must be ready to grow more. Many want the next level, but they skip the lessons required to survive it. That's why delay exists, to make sure you don't receive what you're not ready to retain. David was anointed as king when he was still a shepherd boy, but he didn't step onto the throne overnight. He spent years tending sheep, playing his harp, fighting lions and bears in secret. That was his preparation. When Goliath appeared, David didn't panic. He was prepared. What others saw as an impossible obstacle, David saw as an opportunity to apply what he'd already learned in private. His preparation in delay positioned him for elevation in destiny. By the time he stood before the giant, he had already developed the courage, skill, and faith necessary for victory. What he did in delay determined how he handled destiny. So don't curse the waiting room of your life. Don't despise the season where nothing seems to be moving. That's where God does His best work in you. He's building strength, sharpening vision, and forming endurance. Every unanswered prayer, every postponed plan, every delay is an invitation to grow deeper. When it feels like nothing is happening, that's when everything is happening. Heaven is shaping you quietly, preparing you for what eyes have not seen and ears have not heard. Sometimes God delays elevation not because you're unworthy, but because He's expanding your capacity. He's stretching you so you can handle greater responsibility. If you arrive too early, your character might collapse under the weight of the blessing. So God, in His love, lets you wait a little longer. The waiting is His mercy. It's His way of ensuring your success will not destroy you. That's why you must keep growing even when no one notices. Keep learning even when doors are closed. Keep serving even when it feels small. Preparation is how you prove to heaven that you're serious about destiny. When God says not yet, He's protecting what's meant for you. Those two words, not yet, can feel heavy. They can break your heart, frustrate your faith, and make you question whether God still hears your prayers. You've waited, prayed, fasted, believed, and it feels like heaven is holding you at arm's length. But what if not yet isn't rejection? What if it's divine protection? Sometimes God's delay is not a punishment but a shield, a way of safeguarding the promise until the time is right. Because what good is a blessing if it arrives before you're ready, or before it's ready for you? God's not yet is His mercy wrapped in mystery. We live in a world that glorifies instant results. We want quick answers, fast breakthroughs, overnight success. But God's ways are higher than ours. He's not driven by your clock. He's driven by your calling. And when He says, not yet, it's because He sees something you don't. He knows that an early blessing can become a burden. He knows that sometimes what you're praying for still needs preparation. He's protecting you from premature exposure, premature opportunity, premature promotion, because anything that comes too early can fall apart too soon. Imagine a fruit picked before it's ripe. It looks good on the outside, but it's bitter on the inside. That's what happens when blessings come before their time. God's not yet keeps you from biting into something that hasn't matured. It protects you from situations that might look sweet but would sour your soul. You might think you're ready, But readiness in your eyes isn't always readiness in God's. Sometimes he holds back the very thing you desire because he's still building you to handle it. He's strengthening your character, aligning your circumstances, and ensuring that when the blessing comes, it stays. Think about Joseph. As a young man, he dreamed of greatness, of being in a position of power and influence. But before that dream could come true, he went through betrayal, slavery, and imprisonment. It wasn't that God forgot his promise. It was that the promise wasn't ready to unfold. If Joseph had been promoted earlier, he wouldn't have had the wisdom, humility, or experience to handle the weight of leadership. God's not yet was protecting both Joseph and the destiny he was called to fulfill. When the time finally came, Joseph wasn't just in the right place, he was the right person. Every divine delay positions you for a blessing bigger than your prayer. When God makes you wait, it's never without purpose. The waiting room of heaven is not a place of punishment. It's a place of preparation for something greater than you imagined. Sometimes God delays not because he's denying you, but because he's designing something beyond the limits of your request. What you're praying for might be good, but what God is planning is greater. You see only what you want, but he sees what you need. He knows that if he answered your prayer too soon or too small, you'd stop short of destiny. So he waits not to frustrate you, but to fulfill you beyond measure. Divine delay is the soil in which God grows unexpected blessings. We think of delay as stillness, but in the realm of faith, it's movement. It's God shifting things in the unseen so that when the blessing arrives, it fits perfectly into your life. While you're waiting, he's arranging circumstances, touching hearts, opening unseen doors, and removing obstacles you don't even know exist. The delay is not a sign of inactivity. It's a sign of divine orchestration. You may be praying for one breakthrough, but God is aligning 10 breakthroughs to collide in your favor. Think of Hannah, who prayed for a son year after year while others mocked her pain. To her, it looked like delay, endless waiting, endless tears. But when God finally answered, he didn't just give her a child. He gave her Samuel, a prophet, a leader, a man who would anoint kings and change nations. The blessing that came after delay was far greater than the one she initially prayed for. That's what God does. He multiplies meaning in the wait. The magnitude of your delay often reveals the magnitude of your destiny. The longer the wait, the greater the weight of the blessing. When you look back over every season of waiting, every unanswered prayer, and every door that seemed shut, you begin to realize that God's hand was never absent. He was writing a story that took time to unfold. God's delay is not God's denial, is more than a message. It's a revelation. It's a reminder that heaven's clock does not run on human time. What looked like silence was strategy. What felt like rejection was redirection. Every tear you cried, every night you wrestled with doubt, every prayer that seemed to vanish into the air, God collected them all, and he used them as building blocks for your breakthrough. Delay was never meant to destroy your faith. It was meant to deepen it. It was in the waiting that you learned to trust him beyond what you could see. It was in the silence that you discovered his still, small voice. It was in the pause that your roots grew deep enough to handle the weight of the blessing. Because what God is preparing for you requires maturity, strength, and spiritual endurance, qualities that can only be forged in delay. So if you find yourself still waiting, don't lose hope. God hasn't forgotten you. He's aligning your promise with His purpose. He's not withholding your miracle, He's perfecting it. And when it comes, it will come suddenly, powerfully, beautifully, and unmistakably as the hand of God.